Welcome back to Games That We Missed Out On. This month's video is brought to you by Star Citizen, one of the most ambitious space-themed MMOs in the history of video games. My great-great-great-grandkids are gonna love this game when it is released. Now, back in the NES days, one of my favorite shooters ever was Zanac, which was developed by Compile and published by FCI. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this title, it is an overhead shooter that was released on the MSX computer and the Famicom in 1986 and was then released in North America in 1987. A slightly enhanced version was also released on the MSX2 entitled Zanac EX, having improved scrolling and some reworked graphics. This is one of the first types of a bullet hell shooter that I can think of. Now, I'm not saying that this is a bullet hell shooter, but it comes pretty damn close to being one. It is fast paced. I'm talking fast. How fast? Well, it's like playing Xevious on crack while playing it in fast forward speed. The game is unique in that the AI actually adjusts to your gameplay on the fly. The better you play, the better the AI and the more relentless it gets. Another interesting thing about the game is that you have tons and tons of enemies on the screen at all times, and the game rarely if ever slows down or even flickers. What magic is being used here? So when the Super NES came out, I was hoping for a sequel. Now, Space Megaforce,
presented by Toho,
was not a direct sequel, but it was a great shooter made by Compile and one of my favorite games on that console, which, let's face it, was not known for its shooters. Oh my god, can this thing go any slower? Someone please shoot me. Thank you. However, we never got a direct Zanac sequel on it. Maybe the Genesis would get a sequel? Okay, maybe not. Zanac X Zanac, which translates basically to Zanac X Zanac, was released on the PlayStation 1. It was developed and published by Compile in 2001, well into the life of the PS1 and crossing into the PS2 timeline. How dare you? Which might be indicative of why it was never released outside of Japan. One sad note to this game is that this would be the last title that Compile would make, as they would declare bankruptcy soon after it was released. It has two games included in the package, Original Zanac and Zanac Neo, which is the one I'm going to be covering in this video. Zanac Neo has 10 levels and you get to choose from 3 different ships plus a hidden ship from the Original Zanac. The Original Zanac included has 3 different modes of gameplay and 16 levels to boot. The story of this game, it's in the manual. I'm not going to go over it. It's a shooter. I mean, how interesting can the story possibly be? However, I do have a feeling that part of the story involves me flying a ship into enemy space and maybe shooting down tons and tons of ships. I could be wrong. Now, each one of the ships has its own specific weaponry and speed. I prefer the blue ship out of the 3 called Scarface. Yes, each one has its own name. Just like part 1, you collect different numbered power-ups, and the more you collect of the same number, the more powerful that weapon becomes. One cool feature with this game is that depending on what weapon you have equipped, the AI will attack in different ways. So if you take, let me see, 4 ships total, each with 8 weapons, you get... hold up a second. Yep, I failed math at every single grade level in college. 1 minute. You know what? I don't think we can quantify such a large number. Let me just put it this way, you have lots of options. So first, let's take a quick look at the visuals. The graphics here are nice. There's quite a bit of parallax scrolling and it gives the game a good sense of depth. The stages scroll a bit fast for the most part, so it's kind of hard to take in the colors and the details that the PS1 was capable of. However, there are a lot of pixelated objects and background art as well. Very easy to miss when everything is flying past you at breakneck speed. But once the level slows down, then it really sticks out to the eye. To me, you're gonna find some of the best visuals on the few stages at the beginning. Towards the end, some backgrounds are too plain and all the colors feel a little bit too flat and similar for the most part. I still think it looks great, but maybe a little more detail like those found maybe in Raiden 2 could have easily pushed the game up in my favorite shmup list. But like I said, the game still looks great, and this is just me nitpicking. Now let's move on to the gameplay. Now, I don't want to spoil the game for anyone out there that might want to play this game, so I'm going to show you only the first 4 stages. You know, I joked earlier about it being a shooter, so it must be simplistic, but the game has a few gameplay mechanics that add complexity to it. First is the amount of weapons, which, you know, I still can't figure out how many in total. But one of the fun parts of replaying this game is messing with the different ships and playing around with each type of weapon to see which is good. The game has 3 ships to choose from, like I said, but you can unlock the original ship from the first game, and it uses all the same weapons as well. So if you don't feel comfortable playing with the other ships, you can always have the original to fall back on, which it's kind of cool. Like stated before, each ship has its own specific feel to it. The red ship is the fastest, but I feel the weapons on it are a little lackluster. The blue ship is the mid-tier ship. Not fast, not slow, good weapons. This is the one that I use the most since the weapons, to me at least, feel very similar to the original, but with only slight changes to them all. The green one is the slowest, but the weapons are top-notch if you can last long enough to fully power up. Some weapons, like number 5, can greatly slow the ship down if constantly used, so you have to decide when to use it versus not using it and gaining that slight speed boost. Which brings me more to the mechanic of the game. There is no way to change speeds with your ships. You are stuck with their mobility. Finding the right weapon is crucial. There's also no power bomb or any type of screen clearing special shot. Again, you will be relying on your weapons, but picking up the weapons is only part of the strategy. You see, when you pick up any power-up number, your ship gains a few seconds of invincibility. So if you use that wisely, you can jump from power-up to power-up if timed correctly and get out of sticky situations. But be careful, because your weapon's power level does not transfer over to one another. So the choices at that point are: 1. You can die and take a loss of your sub-weapon and main lasers back to square one, or 2. You can switch sub-weapons but keep your main lasers powered up. You could also choose to just die since it affects the game's difficulty as well, letting you reset a bit if you're feeling overwhelmed. The AI here accommodates itself to your playing style, so the better you play, the more difficult it becomes. What type of weapon you use also affects the AI. There are certain items that you can shoot to get a little bit of help. You can find ferries, landers, which are a compile staple, enemy racers, and eyes, which can fully power up both your primary and secondary weapons. You can also find warp holes that give you invincibility, but during the whole time that I was playing for this video, I couldn't find any. You also have this little meter down here at the bottom left. It is your charge shot. You can charge a shot that can be used to chain enemy kills. You know, I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never really understood the feature for this, and I don't know how to properly use it, so I've never really understood this feature, so I don't feel that I'm using it to its best capability. So I'm gonna skip this one. And if this is all too much for you, just go back out to the main menu and select to play the original game. On to the music. Now this one was a bit of a letdown for me. Sure, it has some nice tunes that are a throwback to the original game, but most of the soundtrack, for me at least, feels a little bit too laid back for a space shooter, especially one as intense as Zanac. Now again, the music is not bad, it just, to me, doesn't feel like it goes well with the game. The controls, very responsive. Like in the original game, you had to hold down the A and B buttons to constantly shoot the primary and secondary weapon. On Zanac Neo, you have one button that does both, which is great because this is a game where you're going to be firing at all times with little time for rest. My final thoughts on Zanac Neo? This is a worthy sequel to the Zanac name. The NES introduces some of the most frantic pacing in a shooter for its time. Neo took all that gameplay, all the weapons, gave us 4 ships, each with their specific strengths and weaknesses, and upgraded graphics, and gave shmup fans a game worthy to be in your PS1 library. If you were in Japan, this game never made it outside of Japan until it was released on the PlayStation Store on December of 2012. That's 11 years. That's when I was finally able to scoop it up and finally play it on my PS3, and you know what? It did not disappoint. Zanac is one of those fast action paced games that is relentless and has these archaic power shifts throughout. Many shooters out there are slow to build up your ship's weaponry and they penalize you heavily for losing. Yet Zanac offers the ability to climb right back up on the saddle without missing a beat. You could be at the highest level for your weapon 1 minute and reduce to your single shot the next. But that same momentum can swing in the opposite direction as well. Now couple that with an ever-changing AI that makes every playthrough slightly different when it comes to enemy waves and attacks, and you got yourself not only a good shooter, but a nice amount of replay value. Especially when you take into consideration that the original Zanac game is also included, and not only Zanac, but 3 versions of it. The Famicom and the NES versions, and a slightly enhanced version which, you know what, I can't tell the difference other than it starts you off with the hidden ship from the NES one. But it's called enhanced, so it must be? Yeah. It's a shame we never got a physical copy of this game over here. And you know what, good luck buying one now. They are expensive. They were expensive then, and they are expensive now, physically. I'm surprised it took us 11 years to get a chance to play it digitally. Problem is that it is no longer available on the PlayStation Store as well. So it's either selling your kidney in the black market to get one from eBay for those outrageous prices, or downloading the image of the game, which is considered pirating, and possibly having your kidney taken from you while you sleep at night. Now, ever hear about Zanac? Ever played the original or maybe the sequel right here? Share with us in the comment section below. And as the year winds down, I got one more video I need to release before we bring in the new year. Until then, keep watching, keep gaming, and as always, take care of yourselves. Hey, you still haven't played Zanac Neo?
Huh?
What are you waiting for, Nintendo to make it? You have seen the game, right? Wrong answer, man. Get the Zanac game. Wanna see more? Zanac!